Hello, everybody, and I hope you are having a fabulous first Monday of 2021. We still have a couple more minutes before we get started, but I wanted to log in early, see if you have any particular questions about circadian rhythms or circadian rhythm disruption. Oh, and I don't even have the intro slide up yet. Bad me. Anyhow, and I'm also curious, I asked the question in the chat area, what is one thing that you are going to work on this year to make it a better year than last year? And how are you breaking it into little daily mastery experiences? While you're thinking about that, I am going to go ahead and get started. But as always, please feel free to ask questions in the chat area, and I will do my best to answer them. Oops. Welcome to today's presentation of Integrated Behavioral Health. I am your host, Dr. Elise Snipes, and today we are talking about light and circadian rhythms. We've talked in the past about sleep, and we've talked in the past a little bit about light. Last week we talked about environments and ways to improve light, but one of the reasons that sleep and light are important, and one of the things that affects sleep, are our circadian rhythms. And a lot of people think of circadian rhythms as just what controls when we're sleepy, and it is so much more than that. Our circadian rhythms, they've found, actually impact just about every system and every process in the body. So when our circadian rhythms are wonky, it creates a whole bunch of problems. It can, let's just go through what some of the things that the circadian rhythms do, and then you can see how having disrupted circadian rhythms can be a problem. When your circadian rhythms are in alignment, the digestive system produces proteins to match the timing of your typical meals. When you are not maintaining your circadian rhythms, when you're going to sleep some nights at 7 a.m. and some nights at 9 p.m., your body doesn't know when it's supposed to secrete those hunger and satiation hormones. So that can create a problem. People who have erratic circadian rhythms tend to have more difficulty with weight management and do tend to be more obese than people who have stable circadian rhythms. The endocrine system also is tied to your circadian rhythms, and it regulates cortisol to suit your normal energy expenditure. So again, your body starts to expect, like for me, I get up about 3 in the morning. And so my body knows that that's when my cortisol is supposed to surge and be at its highest. And then I go to sleep about 8 o'clock at night. So that's when my cortisol levels should be at about their lowest. And that happens because I have a consistent schedule that helps me set my circadian rhythms. Cortisol gets a bad rap as our stress hormone, but it is also our energy hormone. And when we need cortisol to have a little bit of get up and go. Metabolism and weight are impacted by circadian rhythms because our circadian rhythms actually do regulate our blood sugar and our cholesterol levels. Now, let's talk about blood sugar first. When your circadian rhythms are all over the place, your blood sugar is not being regulated as well. So people who have insulin resistance and people who have prediabetes or diabetes are going to find it more difficult to regulate their blood sugar during these periods. Additionally, when our circadian rhythms, as we talked about with the digestive system, when our circadian rhythms are not in alignment, we tend to be hungrier more often because our body doesn't know when we're supposed to sleep, when we're supposed to eat. So people tend to do more grazing, which also contributes to difficulty with regulating blood sugar because the body's almost regularly being bombarded with with glucose. The other thing with metabolism, and this also goes along with gonadal hormones, which we'll get to in a minute, but our gonadal hormones are actually made from cholesterol. Our testosterone is made from cholesterol. So if we don't have adequate regulation of that, then our body's going to have more difficulty having the raw materials to make our gonadal hormones. Think of it like the UPS man. You count on a delivery every month or every 3 months or whatever. And our circadian rhythms are kind of like that daily UPS man that is making sure that it delivers the cholesterol and regulates it in a fashion that we need. Our circadian rhythms also impact our reproductive system and influence the release of gonadal hormones. So when your circadian rhythms are out of whack, many times it's going to impact your libido, and it may also impact your ability to conceive if you're a female, because your hormones are going to be even more all over the place. So this can also underscore the importance of maintaining your circadian rhythms, even when your hormones are, a little bit all over the place, depending on where you are in your monthly cycle. It's still important to make sure that we maintain our circadian rhythms. The immune system is also impacted by circadian rhythms, as well as processes of DNA repair that are involved in preventing cancer. We need that good quality sleep. When we're in that deep sleep is when our body does all of its preventative maintenance. It goes through and clears out the adenosine, and it clears out some of the free radicals and does that. Now, it does some of this during the day, but when we're resting, our body is able to focus. It's kind of like the nighttime janitorial staff coming in and clearing out all the sludge of the day. But if we're not getting that good quality sleep, that's not going to happen. And we won't get good quality sleep if our circadian rhythms are not in sync. Circadian rhythms also, and this is the one we typically think of, help our body know when to secrete melatonin so we can get sleepy and start getting to sleep, so we can get that rest and restorative sleep. And we've talked in other videos about how in order to relieve our sleep pressure, in order to wake up and feel alert and refreshed, it is important that we have a certain amount of deep sleep every night, because that's when the brain is able to clear out the adenosine and engage in neuronal repair. They've found in multiple studies that people who don't have good circadian rhythm regulation are at much higher risk of Alzheimer's and dementia, because that neuronal repair doesn't take place in their younger years, and it becomes additive, kind of like a factory that you don't regularly engage in preventative maintenance. 5-10 years of abuse and things are really going to start to break down. So how do we fix this? Well, our circadian rhythms are regulated by the suprachiasmatic nucleus, or the SCN, which is in the hypothalamus. Now, where have we heard that word before? Hypothalamus, hypothalamic pituitary adrenal axis, hypothalamic pituitary gonadal axis. If our hypothalamus is not healthy, we are going to have a whole world of problems. So we really want to work to keep our brain healthy. We want to work to help regulate that HPA axis, because remember, when that becomes dysregulated, we start having neuronal death, which can also impact our circadian rhythms. It can impact the health of the hypothalamus. In any event, back to circadian rhythms. How do we start regulating these buggers? Light is going to be really important. And in terms of circadian rhythms, light can come from artificial sources. When we're talking about getting vitamin D, that is a whole different animal, and that is can only be acquired through the sun or special bulbs that produce UVB lights, which we have talked about, not necessarily recommended for humans, although they do have those bulbs for terrariums if you happen to raise reptiles or something. But in terms of circadian rhythms, we want to have blue light in moderation during the day. Now, blue light helps improve memory, improve energy. Blue light signals the SCN that it is time to be awake. Now, I have this little handy dandy chart over here because a lot of people have difficulty kind of thinking about, what is blue light versus other light. And our blue light tends to have a lot of energy in it, which for some reason prompts us to have more energy. Your blue lights are going to be that cool temperature, which can look kind of obnoxious in pictures. A lot of people don't like strong blue light for selfies, but blue light can help you be awake. Our digital devices, our TVs, especially LCD TVs, and our computer screens and those sorts of things emit a lot of blue light. Now, too much can be hard on our eyes. It can be hard on our retinas. So as with anything, moderation is the key. But we do need a little bit of blue light during the day to help us have energy and improve our memory and our cognitive functioning. You can get that through daylight bulbs. I suggest, I think we talked about this last week, using LED bulbs, blue light with a temperature of 5,000 Kelvin or above, and get it as bright as possible. You're really trying to mimic sunlight, and you know how bright sunlight is. The closer a light bulb is to you, the less the light diffuses, the more intensely you're going to get that light. So instead of having can lights in the ceiling, if you can have a couple of desk lights or one of those lamps that sits by your chair and kind of goes over your head, those can be really helpful for adding to your light at your desk. Even if you have to have bulbs overhead, in your office, you can also add a small desk lamp that has a daylight bulb, and the bulbs that have the 5,500 Kelvin temperature are typically going to be called daylight bulbs. And you can have one of those on your desk. That is one of the easiest ways to help start setting your circadian rhythms. If you work in a dark area, like a neonatal intensive care unit, you may, I'm not saying that you necessarily can, but if you have your desk over in a corner where it's not going to disrupt the patients, you may be able to add a desk lamp that has a single bulb, so it's a really focused light. So when you do sit down to do your notes, you are able to benefit from that. Now, when you're talking about people who do shift work, and we're going to talk about shift work a little bit at the end, but it is important during your, quote, awake times to try to expose yourself to blue light. And it's important during the times when you're supposed to be going to sleep to avoid blue light. But I'll get to that in a minute. So light helps set our circadian rhythms, but it is not the only thing that cues our SCN that it's what it's supposed to do with our circadian rhythms. Exercise also cues in our SCN. Theoretically, when we wake up in the morning, we're going to be energetic and we're going to get on with our day. We're going to do more activity during the day. And as we wind down, we are going to stop moving as much. Low intensity exercise reduces cortisol and makes serotonin more available, which, remember, melatonin is made from serotonin. So low intensity exercise 2 hours before bed can be helpful at improving sleep. High intensity exercise releases endorphins and serotonin. Now, it temporarily increases cortisol levels, but some people do find that even high intensity exercise can help them sleep better as long as they do it at least 2 hours before bedtime. Social activity enhances oxytocin, our bonding chemical, and reduces stress. And it's often associated with being awake. So when we are with other people, It helps us feel like we want to bond, engage in pro-social activities, tends to reduce cortisol levels, which makes serotonin more available eventually. But when we are around other people and we're socializing, it's typically sending the cue to our SCN that it is not time to sleep yet. It's better if you can have some downtime, some me time, some quiet time, whatever you want to call it, non-social time, 30 minutes before bed. And, with little kids, we read them a story. That's not what the SCN really cues in as social activity, because the child is listening and, taking in the story. The child is not engaging in interactive conversation or interactive activity to a large part. So social activity can be a cue. And body temperature also signals awakeness or time for sleep. As body temperature increases, the SCN gets the cue that, hey, it's time to be awake. And as body temperature decreases, the body gets the cue that it's time to go to sleep. Now, this makes total sense to me now. When I was in my graduate program, all of our classes were in the basement. The classrooms were in the basement of the hospital, and it was freezing down there during the summer. This is in Florida, so outside, if it's 90 degrees, inside it was like sub-zero. And whenever I get really cold, I get really sleepy. And it makes sense because my suprachiasmatic nucleus is saying, hey, you're not socializing, you're sitting still, you're not moving around a lot, and you're freezing. I guess it's time to go to sleep, which it really wasn't. But so this can help you understand, maybe why you might start feeling sleepy at certain times. But it also can help you understand why it's important to be cool when you're trying to sleep at night. So make sure that your bedding is conducive to cool sleeping. I have a boxer, and he is like a one dog heating unit. And whenever he comes and presses up against me, I might as well have a heating pad on. So I'm definitely not staying cool then. Having fans circulating, having breathable sheets and things, those can be very, very helpful. Whatever you need to do to regulate your body temperature. They've also found that for some people, having socks on, because we lose so much body heat through our feet, having socks on actually helps them regulate their body temperature. Now, for some of the rest of us, we find that having socks on, we actually get way overheated. And one of my best friends gave me this little tip, and it works really well for me, and obviously for her, to when we sleep, keeping our not having socks on and keeping our feet uncovered helps us from waking up in the middle of hot flashes. So, just a little tip out there. You can try it. Other causes of circadian rhythm disruption may not be related specifically to the suprachiasmatic nucleus, although you'll be able to see how they're integrated. Caregiving to someone who needs care around the clock. And, this can be when I foster orphan puppies and kittens. I have to get up every 2 to 4 hours, depending on how old they are, to feed them. When you have an infant at home, you have to get up every 2 to 4 hours to feed them. If you have a loved one at home who has Alzheimer's or dementia or cancer or something, and you're having to get up around the clock, or they frequently get up through the night, then that can disrupt your circadian rhythms. Sharing a room with someone who gets up and down frequently throughout the night, even if it's just to go to the bathroom, can also disrupt your circadian rhythms because that can jar you out of your deep sleep. So it is important to try to make your sleep as consistent as possible. If you have, like when we have bottle babies, foster animals at the house, a lot of times my daughter and I will switch off. So, she will take the first 4 hours of the night and I will take the last 4 hours of the night. That way we can arrange our sleep schedule so we can get a solid 8. We just adjust when we go to sleep or when we get up. It's not great for circadian rhythms, but it's one of those things. It's like when you have an infant at home, obviously, just because it's going to disrupt your circadian rhythms for the first 16 years of your life, their life, it doesn't mean that you don't necessarily want to have children. It means that you need to be aware of this and do as much as you can to protect your circadian rhythms. Still try to keep a stable sleep schedule. If you can, try to do the handoff. My husband was on midnight shift when my children were, infants and not sleeping through the night yet. And he would take the middle of the night feeding. So I was able to get a good solid amount of sleep. That is really important for my health and my mental health. If you're working with somebody, if you have somebody living in your household who needs care around the clock, they're an adult, but they have some other issue going on, you can also think about getting respite care to come in, having an overnight nurse come in. And maybe you can only afford to do that some. Maybe you can have friends who are willing to come in and take shifts if you start feeling like you're getting really run down. My point being, sometimes we're not going to be able to avoid circadian rhythm disruption, but we need to be mindful of when it is starting to wear us down, when it's starting to affect our libido, affect our immune system, affect our energy, affect our mood. Because when we are depleted, we don't have energy to give to anybody else. So we need to be able to maintain ourselves. Shift work. And I know we have to have shift work. The world does not shut down at 8 p.m. So if you work a shift, keep your schedule consistent. On your days off, stay up all night if you are working an all-night shift. That's really important. And then when you get home, try to get to bed before daylight. Early morning light exposure will trigger that awake cycle. So if you can get home and you can get inside before that sun rises, you are going to be well ahead of the game. Otherwise, your SCN is going to get really confused because it sees daylight, it sees dawn, and it says, oh, okay, now I'm supposed to be awake. Pain. Pain can keep us from getting good quality sleep. It can keep us from resting when we're not able to sleep through the night. When pain is waking you up throughout the night, it's going to disrupt those circadian rhythms. So it's important to do what you can to regulate your pain. Going back, go back to the basics. Ergonomics. Do you have a good pillow? Do you have a good mattress? If you can use heat or cold to, ice or heat in order to make the pain go away. If you're cleared by your physician, can you do simple stretches in order to alleviate some of the pain? I have a bad back. I've talked about it before. Y'all know that. And I recently, finally, wish I would have done it 20 years ago, got an inversion table. And inverting for me, for 5 minutes in the morning and 5 minutes at night makes a huge difference in the amount of back pain I experience. So think about what you can do and try to figure out what works to alleviate your pain. Also remember, as stress goes up, pain goes up. So part of your pain or pain management strategy may also require reducing your stress. But when you do these things, and you start being able to sleep through the night and, set your goals reasonable. Shoot at first, maybe shoot for a good solid 6. And if you can get that, then you can start trying to work up to that good solid 8 that technically, even as adults, we're still supposed to get. But a good solid 6 or 8 hours, if you do that consistently for a month or more, you're going to find that circadian rhythm starts to reset and you start to feel in a lot of times increases in energy. You may start to see improvements in your libido. You may start to see improvements in your attitude, because remember, our mood is connected not only to neurotransmitters like serotonin and cortisol, and hormones like cortisol, but also to our gonadal hormones. And when our gonadal hormones or our cortisol is out of whack, it can make serotonin and GABA and our, quote, happy chemicals less available to us. So it's important to make sure that we are setting the circadian rhythm so our body stays on the correct clock and it knows when it's supposed to secrete what. We've talked about light, and it's important to eliminate light as much as possible in your bedroom. Make sure that your blinds block out as much light as possible. A lot of times they don't do everything. I know mine doesn't, or mine don't. So on full moon nights, a lot of times it's really bright in my room unless I pull the curtains as well. And it a lot of times is worth it to make the investment in light blocking curtains. And you can get those at, big box stores. You can get them offline. They're not super expensive as curtains go, but it is something of an investment if you don't have a lot of, just cash laying around somewhere. Temperature. You can get personal coolers, if you will, and they call them like tabletop swamp coolers, or you can make your own. You can get a 8x8 glass pan and fill it with ice cubes and water and set a fan just beyond that. So the fan blows over, little tabletop fan. So the fan blows over the ice and the water that humidifies the air and it blows the cool air onto you. Now it doesn't last forever, but it does last for several hours. So it can help cool your particular area down. This works especially well if you have a significant other who tends to run cooler than you do, and the temperature that you want it, they think it is just, an ice box in there. So regulate your temperature as much as possible. Keep your physical temperature down late at night. If you have traumatic brain injury or neurodegenerative disorders that impact the hypothalamus, if that hypothalamus is not healthy, if the suprachiasmatic nucleus is not healthy, then your circadian rhythms may be off. And we do see this, unfortunately, a lot in people with Alzheimer's and dementia. Also, as I said, people with traumatic brain injury, and that can be from a car accident or from a tumor or something else. It's important to work with your neurologist if you have something that is neurological in nature, to find out, what are the best ways that you can regulate your circadian rhythms. Now down to the last two. Caffeine. Remember, it stays in your body for up to 12 hours after you consume it. So if you are consuming caffeine at noon, you are probably impairing your ability to get good quality deep sleep until after midnight. And, like me, I get up at 3 a.m, so that doesn't leave much time to get good quality deep sleep. Try to cut back on caffeine 12 hours before you go to bed. So if you go to bed at 8 p.m., cut out the caffeine at 8 a.m. And that is a huge ask for a lot of people. Cut back at least and be cognizant of when you are consuming it. If you are drinking caffeine and it has no effect on you, that tells me that your body has actually become caffeine resistant, if you want to think about it that way, or tolerant to caffeine, which probably means you have some level of HPA axis dysregulation, and that is probably negatively impacting your circadian rhythms. The last one is alcohol. And so many people think, oh, well, alcohol helps me fall asleep. Well, that's true. It does. It helps you drift off to sleep faster. However, as it leaves your body, it actually prompts an excitatory response, an anxiety type response, because the body can't secrete GABA quickly enough, not to get into pharmacology here. So whereas the first couple hours may be decent, probably not great deep sleep during that period, but you're at least sleeping. After that, your sleep is going to be significantly disrupted. Now, if you have sleep apnea or allergies where you tend to mouth breathe and snore, alcohol can actually, even during the first part of the night, you may drift off to sleep faster, but it has been shown to worsen sleep apnea and has been shown to worsen snoring. So cutting back on that alcohol, so you have a blood alcohol level of 0.0 when you go to bed, is ideal. You need to be reasonable. You need to pick your battles. I've told y'all before that, I am not going to quit doing animal rescue, and I'm not going to kick all the dogs out of the bed. So I am choosing to do things that I know may negatively impact my circadian rhythm some nights. But I'm also more mindful. And if I feel like I'm starting to get run down, then I may either ask for help. That's the nice thing about fostering animals. There's always other fosters who can pinch hit for a few days if you're starting to get run down. Or, in terms of the dogs, I will kick them all out and make them, oh my gosh, sleep on the sofa. How dare I? But that way I know I can get my rest, because I know that's important to me being able to do everything that's important in my rich and meaningful life. So, circadian rhythms, really important. Going back to this first thing, it impacts your digestive system, your hunger. It can contribute to obesity because you start having more difficulty regulating blood sugar. It contributes to insulin resistance, and your body doesn't know when it's hungry. So a lot of times you have this underlying urge to just kind of eat. It impacts the endocrine system and your cortisol levels, which can impact your energy levels. It impacts your reproductive system, your immune system, and cognition, both in the short term and potentially long term, because disrupted circadian rhythms can set you up for development of cognitive issues later in life. Are there any questions? I so appreciate y'all being here with me this first Monday of the new year, and I hope to see you obviously every day throughout the rest of this 6-week course, if you will, on strategies to improve your health and happiness. Now, if you missed the first 2 weeks, which I did obviously back in December, they are available on, on demand on the YouTube channel. So you can go back and look at those. My goal is to provide you one actionable tidbit of information every single day so you can use that tidbit or not in order to start improving your health and happiness for the rest of your life, not just for the moment. Everybody have a fabulous day, and I will see you tomorrow. Same time, same station.